Mr. and Mrs. Claus, also known as Jesse and Debbie Cann. I want to say that this has been a wonderful experience to help them with their ministry, which is called Santa and Friends. They've been doing this for 30 years. I didn't realize it had been that long for them. They have a loving heart and a willing spirit led by the Lord wherever they see a need. It has been a fun experience as well as a spiritual one since meeting them and helping them with the projects they've been doing just this year. The latest one was the backpack stuffing and giveaway to school children in Newland, North Carolina area, one of many that was devastated by Hurricane Helene. Debbie Solonika and Kathy Hazel went to Newland to help with giving out the backpacks. I'll let Debbie tell her experience, and then Mr. and Miss Claus will come up and talk about their ministry. The pictures on the screen can show the fun and love at the giveaway. And Kathy's not able to be here. She's not up feeling well today. Debbie.
Hi, I'm Debbie Solonika. Most of you know me. I was always brought up with the belief it's better to give than to receive. And I always grew up helping people and, giving things and all. But it wasn't until I got to retire and I went with the Canns up to Newland and got involved in the Backpack Buddy. Oh my gosh, I think I got just as much as a blessing as they did. Going and seeing these kids, seeing their smiling faces, and the parents are just so appreciative of everything we did. We filled the backpacks with everything they would need for the school year. We put the backpacks out. We let them choose what backpack they wanted. And that meant so much to them. There was one little girl that came up to me and she said, I see that Stitch backpack in the truck. Can I have that one? I said, yes, ma'am, you can. And with my bad back, I helped her get up in the truck. And she went in and got that backpack and came back out. And her face just glowed. I mean, they were just glowing all over the place. I ended up more in the prayer tent, and we had people coming in asking for prayer. We had kids coming in, will you pray for me that I have a good school year? And I said, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, we will. Then we went to a memory care hospital. Memory care, most of them have Alzheimer's or dementia. And we handed out baby dolls. Now, if I thought I had a blessing on Saturday, you wouldn't believe the blessing we got on Sunday. These men and women took these baby dolls and would love them and hold them. One of them stood up and she started singing Jesus Loves Me to her baby. Another lady just took her baby and wrapped it up in her coat, and come to find out she was a pediatric nurse that had traveled to Africa and other countries. But it was like one day the light bulb just went off, and there she was. They were the sweetest people. And of course, I can't say that I came away from that without a little tear in my eye. But not as bad as Kathy did. Kathy was a boo-hooing all over, which was great. I mean, it showed real passion for what we were doing. All I got to say is I think I got more out of being with them than they got out of just getting the thing. And I'm forever grateful for this opportunity to serve. When I retired, I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. I've worked since I was 15 years old. What am I going to do? And now I have found out what I'm doing while I retire. I'm giving back and serving. And now I know what my dad meant when he said, it's better to give than receive.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Carolyn. Am I on, Debbie? Am I turned on? Okay. Good morning. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We feel like we're at home because your church has just been wonderful in coming beside of us. You helped us. You made just so many donations to our ministry when we went to take Easter baskets in April, and there just aren't enough words for how blessed we were to have you come alongside of us when we went to Western North Carolina. And Taylor, thank you. That song was beautiful. And oh my goodness, how exciting it is that there was a new kid in town. And thanks to that new kid in town, I can stand here before you today and say, I'm saved, I'm blessed, and I know where I'm going one day, and I hope I'm going to see all of you when I get there because there was a new kid in town. 30 years ago, Santa and I know it's hard to believe. I was very young when we started this. This ministry, I was just a child. But 30 years ago at Christmas, Santa and I decided that we would not buy Christmas presents for each other, that we would adopt 2 needy children. So we went to Coates Elementary School, which was very low income school at that time. We adopted a kindergarten and 2nd grader, a girl and boy that were brother and sister. And boy, did we have a good time shopping for those 2 kids. And on Christmas morning, we didn't open a single present, but I can tell you it was the best Christmas that I ever had because I knew what those kids were getting up to that Christmas morning. It was absolutely amazing. And for those of you that know me, you know I love to talk. So the next year I told everybody how good that felt. You really need to do this. There's not really anything you need for Christmas anyway. Just adopt a child and make that Christmas special for that child. So when Christmas came around the next year, we adopted 100 kids because we had folks that said, I want to feel like you feel. I want that smile that you've got. So we had 100 kids that year that we were able to help. And at that time, those kids were still in Harnett County. Well, we continued to pray, and I continued to talk and tell everybody how good that felt. So, long story short, 5 years later, we were up to 1,000 kids. We were in 3 different counties. We were Wake County, Harnett County, and Johnston County at that time, and it was absolutely amazing how God was using an old man. We weren't really that old then, but how he was using an old man and an old woman through this ministry. And we had no idea then that 30 years later we would be going to Western North Carolina and be standing here with you at Garner Church of Christ talking about how blessed that we have been. One of the things I want to back up and share with you that we're asked quite often is, how did you meet? Well, I grew up in Angier. Most of you know where Angier is in Harnett County. Everybody in that town was kin to me because I came from 2 very big families. So I would come home from high school and I'd say, Mama, Danny didn't ask me on a date. Go, and she'd say, Lord, no, that's your cousin. That's Grandma Susie's son. Well, after 4 years, and then even a couple of years in college at Campbell, there was nobody that I could date. I was kin to everybody. So I went to the North Pole and I met Santa. And the first question I asked him was, have you ever heard of anger? He said, what? He said, I've never heard of that before. Well, and that's how the story began. So 5 years, we were at 1,000 kids. We incorporated at that time into a nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c, just like your church is, organization. It was very easy to name this organization. Actually, we like to say God named it, because we were Santa and he had brought all these friends along beside of us to share this journey with us. So we became incorporated as a nonprofit. Our mission was to share the magic of Christmas through our love of Christ, to let our service be a reflection of our love for Christ. So we adopted as our theme scripture for this ministry, Matthew 5:14, be the light. And that continues to be our goal. That continues to be our prayer every single day. That's what God expects out of us, is that we need to be the light. And folks, we're in a dark world today, and we really need to let our light shine. Debbie's probably expecting me to make y'all stand up and sing This Little Light of Mine, because we sung that when we were in Western North Carolina. But today I want to talk about the blessings of serving together and the blessings in Western North Carolina. So we do have, as Carolyn said, God's ministry is big. The outreaches, he continues to open doors for us. The outreaches that we have are just amazing. We have a big presence in nursing homes and hospitals and schools and churches. We have a big homeless outreach. We have lots of different outreaches under friends. And most of you are probably old enough to know who Paul Harvey is. So I'd like to say, I hope I can get an invitation to come back at another time and tell the rest of the story, because there's a whole lot to this story. But this morning we're going to talk about what happened in Western North Carolina. Santa and I have been blessed. We've been to Western North Carolina 5 times. The first time that we went last November, and the Hurricane Helene hit on September the 27th of 2024, and those people's lives were changed forever. And what we saw on the news didn't even about to touch what had happened in Western North Carolina. The first time we went last November, we took anything to help keep them warm. We took sleeping bags. We took coats and hats and blankets and scarves and gloves. And we had someone that donated a trailer load of feed for cows and horses. And when that was unloaded, they knew what we were bringing. There were people waiting there because the animals that survived were dying because they were starving. So God knew that. We'd never thought about taking feed for animals. We were thinking about keeping the people warm. But we went back at Christmas. We went to Spruce Pine at that time. That was an amazing outreach. We took 8,500 toys. Now, folks, that's a lot of toys. We had probably 5 or 6 box trucks as full as we could pack them with toys. It was like everywhere we went, people would say, do you still need toys, or can I give you a donation for your toys? It was like it just kept coming in. I said we almost could write another chapter, another story, part 2 to Loaves and Fishes, because it was amazing the amount of toys. And we didn't just go to Western North Carolina. We have a huge outreach. We are Santa for the Marine Corps Toys for Tots program in Harnett County. We have been the Santa for the Marine Corps. Santa was actually in the Army himself, so he was a soldier for about 4 years, but he's been a Marine for 30 years. We also served 3,000 children through the Marine Corps at Christmas last year. So we couldn't back off what God wanted us to do right here at home. So in addition to what he blessed us with here for those 3,000 children, we had 8,500 toys. In the church that we were at in Spruce Pine at Christmas, we took over the whole church. Every Sunday school room in that church was filled with toys, and they were categorized by girl, boy, age. So we had a good friend that's a missionary, Miss Jane and Friends Gospel Ministries, went with us. She set up in the sanctuary. We had the families to come into the sanctuary. We presented the story about there's a new kid in town. We had about 20-some people that were saved during that outreach at Christmas. It was just absolutely amazing. So while the parents are enjoying the toys, Santa has all the kids in the fellowship hall, and Santa likes to party and he really likes to eat cookies. So Santa was having a party in the fellowship hall with the kids, which was just absolutely amazing. So then we went back at Easter and we took over 600 Easter baskets. We had 6 people that got saved at that outreach when we went back at Easter. And we thank you because there were lots of things donated, all kinds of bunny rabbits and candy and things that were donated from your church. You had people that came, I think Carolyn came, did Taylor come and do Easter baskets? I think he did. I know Debbie did. It was a lot of fun. Every time we go to the warehouse, we are blessed. So it has been an amazing outreach. But in addition to those 3 big things in Western North Carolina, the last year has been the busiest year ever for our ministry. And I say that is certainly not a complaint, it's a praise report because God has been so good to us and so many new opportunities. Because in addition to the Western North Carolina, we made and delivered 500 lap blankets to hospitals, nursing homes, hospice patients, and homeless camps. We delivered 170 of the memory baby dolls that Debbie was telling you about to, I think we were in about 9 counties delivering babies. And we've had so many opportunities to speak at churches and schools and civic organizations. So folks, we were tired. You know, I never get tired in my heart. My spirit, I could just go forever because I have a passion for serving, because I have a passion for loving Jesus. But our bodies got tired. We know that. We know that God knows we get tired. We were tired. We were really tired. But I really felt something pulling at me to go to Western North Carolina, but I was tired and I wanted to rest. So I reached out to this real big organization, it's like the Dream Team in Asheville, and said, if there's anybody, I know you probably already have a lot of people helping with school supplies, but if there is a need, Santa and Friends would like to help. And I'm guilty, I have to admit, I was really hoping I wouldn't hear from anybody. But then I was going to feel okay because at least I offered, right? I reached out, so I thought God would be happy with me about that. So we went several weeks and we're like, hey, this is good. We're going to back off for June and July. We're going to work on projects at our house and in our yard, and we might even get to go camping. Well, one Saturday morning that all changed. We got a phone call from a pastor. His name's Pastor Roy. He has a nonprofit ministry called Loving Hands Ministry in Newland. And we spent about an hour and a half on speakerphone with him on that Saturday morning, sitting around the table talking to him and listening to him pour his heart out and listening to him cry. And he said, we need help. Newland was an area that was hit very, very hard and did not get as much help as some of the other areas did. He was explaining to us how FEMA came in and they gave these families a voucher for $750. Now, I've got a family, I've got 2 kids or 3 kids. They're going to give me $750? Really? Shame on us. And to get that $750, you had to go buy flood insurance. What are the chances there's going to ever be another flood in the mountains? You had to buy flood insurance, show proof that you had bought the insurance before you could even get that $750 voucher. These folks had no money. They had nothing. When we were there at Christmas, Santa and I met with a young couple. They had just, several months before the hurricane hit, they had bought a home and had remodeled this old house and had just moved in it, had been in it a few months. When the mudslides came, took their house is totally gone, but the land was gone too. So now they've got a 30-year mortgage. They don't even have a piece of land anymore, so there's not even any place that they can rebuild. And these people are, even now, the 27th is the year anniversary. A year later, there are folks now today that are still living in rusted out old campers. They're living in tents, and we've even seen some of them that are living under tarps that are just tied between trees. So we had seen that. So when this pastor called us and was talking to us that Saturday morning, we knew he wasn't exaggerating the situation. We knew that what he was saying was true because we were there. We had held those people in our arms. We had cried with them. We had prayed with them. And we knew that there was a real need there. So I asked the pastor, I said, how many children are you hoping that you're going to be able to serve? Now, his nonprofit is operating out of a old skate ranch that was built in 1947. So you can imagine what kind of shape that building's in. It was built in 1947. They've put a tin roof on it and tried to patch it up enough that it became a distribution center. So people could come get food and water and propane and whatever they needed, baby things, diapers and formula, baby food, that was a big thing. Pitiful place inside, but they were serving 5 counties because the other counties that are, this is in Avery County, the other counties, people had just kind of thought, well, you know, it's over, let's move on. So they closed down those distribution centers. So those people in those 4 counties, they had nowhere to go. So they were coming to Newland, to this old 1947 skate ranch is where they were coming to get the supplies that they needed. And they were serving, even now, they're open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and they are serving 150 people plus a day. That's how many people are still coming there every day because they need water or they need food. The Friday that we got there and Santa and I went over to meet with Pastor Roy there, we were there for about 2 hours and it was a steady stream of people coming in. And when they come in, they give them 2 Walmart bags and they can put whatever they can put in those bags. How blessed we are that you can go to Food Line or Lowe's Food or wherever you're going to go and get your groceries and you can just fill that shopping cart up. These folks can't do that. They have pretty much lost everything. They've lost their jobs. But you know, the one thing that in these 5 trips there that has amazed me the most, they are still so humble. They are so humble and so appreciative of anything and everything. So we had that about an hour and a half conversation with Pastor Roy. Santa and I got off the phone and we just kind of sat there and stared at each other because we'd already planned some projects for the house, some projects for the yard, a camping trip that we might get to go on. But all of a sudden, God was speaking to us and He said, "Who can I send? Who will go?" And our answer was from Isaiah, "Here we are, God, send us." So that's when it started. But Pastor Roy said that he needed 400. He said, "I'm probably going to need about 400 backpacks of school supplies." He said, "I apologize if that sounds greedy." Well, I was being actually, I guess, just a little bit of a smart aleck. I said, "Oh, that's not greedy. My God's much bigger than 400. Well, at that time, I had no idea how good and how big God was going to be. We carried 1,100. Folks, I got some numbers here for you because this is amazing. We had 16,000 pounds of school supplies. Now that's a lot of notebook paper and composition books, 16,000 pounds. And congratulations to Santa. I can proudly say I think he lifted, unboxed every single one of those boxes. So if he still smells a little bit like Ben Gay, that's probably because of those 16,000 pounds, that equated to $45,000 that was raised for those backpacks and school supplies for Western North Carolina. And we had, oh my goodness, we probably had 100 volunteers over different times. We had 6 or 8 times that we had people come to our warehouse. We had 2 huge assembly lines set up because we weren't just putting a pack of notebook paper and a pencil. There was about $40 worth of school supplies that went in every one of those backpacks. The youngest volunteer that worked with us, we had lots of groups from churches, youth groups. We had kids from Vacation Bible School working with us. But our oldest volunteer was, she was 93. She was 94 a couple of weeks after we finished that outreach. So from 4 to 94. Folks, that's a powerful message because you are never too old to serve. There is always something, never too young to serve. There's always something that you can do in the service for God. We had 17 churches in the area that came along beside of us, including you. Thank you so much. You're one of those 17 churches. We had all kinds of civic groups, schools, businesses. It was just amazing how many people and organizations, because God had a plan, and His plan was big. Not only were we going to Western North Carolina, we were going in a big and mighty way. We had a box truck. Well, guess what? A box truck won't hold 1,158 backpacks of school supplies. So Tar Heel Nursery that loaned us the box truck, they loaned us the second box truck. And we needed 2 drivers. We had someone that was in law enforcement in Harnett County said, I want to go. We had a retired police officer from Raleigh that went with us and drove the other truck. We had, some of you might have seen it, we had the Tar Heel Traveler, Scott Mason, came out to our warehouse and filmed a beautiful story. The day that he was there, we had 40-some volunteers working tirelessly. And folks, this warehouse is hot. It is hot. No air conditioning. We had 2 old shop fans that were basically stirring up hot air. So you had to love the Lord and have a heart for service to want to come work in this hot warehouse. Tar Heel Traveler came out and filmed a story. Channel 11 came out. The newspaper in Harnett County covered it. We even had, this is what amazes me. Santa and I call these God winks. We had a church reach out to us through our website that is in Hickory. We didn't know this church, didn't know anything about them. But this husband and wife are the youth pastors of this church, and the wife reached out to me. She said, our Vacation Bible School kids, we want to do a mission project, and we wanted to do something in Western North Carolina. So I went on the web and was researching to get some ideas of what we could do. She said, and I found your page. Now, folks, as big as the web is and as small as we are with Santa and Friends, she found us. And she went on our page and was reading all the things we were doing, and especially reading about our outreach in Western North Carolina. She said, we would like to do pencil pouches. So they were going to do the pencil pouch, and they were going to put highlighters, pens, pencils, erasers, pencil sharpeners. So Hickory's a long way from where the North Pole is in Anger. So we were trying to figure out, how we could get there. Well, they agreed to meet us, her and her husband. They met us in Asheboro. They brought us 130 pencil pouches that these kids had filled. In addition, they had cases and cases of notebook paper, pencils, all kinds of boxes of stuff. And then they handed us an envelope that was full of cash, and she said, and here's just a little something extra just in case you need it. We had an amazing time with this couple. We met at a McDonald's in Asheboro, so we are in the parking lot real close to where folks are going through the drive-through, and we're standing there in a circle around all these school supplies, holding hands, having prayer over those school supplies. So I know those folks going through that drive-through were wondering, what in the world is going on at McDonald's today? But you know what was going on at McDonald's? God. God was there that day. He brought them there. We're all excited. We've been invited to their church, so we're looking forward to that opportunity to be able to go there and share our ministry with them. We had another church in Johnston County. The pastor called me. We didn't know this church, didn't know anybody at this church, but they had heard about our outreach for Western North Carolina, and he said, our church would like to help you. He said, what do you need most? And of course I explained the backpacks, the school supplies. He said, well, let me get with my deacon board and see what we can do, because we really want to help you. So I didn't think anything about it. I didn't hear from him for several days, and then he called back and he said, our deacons met and we would like to sponsor 100 children. At that time we're thinking we're going to do 400. We'd like to sponsor 100 of those children, so I have a check for you for $4,500. Now, we didn't know that church. We love them to pieces now because they came and served with us. They were there every time we opened the doors to the warehouse. They were there with us. It's just been amazing how God has brought so many people together. And Wayne, that's why I appreciate so much what you said about we're stronger together when we can serve together, and we're more blessed because we're so blessed because it's through service that we got to know Garner Church of Christ. We've known Debbie and Wayne and Taylor for years. They have volunteered and we have served together for years. And through Debbie, I met Carolyn, and then Debbie, and then Judy, and then Linda, and then crybaby that's not here today, Kathy. So it's just been amazing how God has brought us together to love each other in Christian fellowship, but to serve together. And we are just so appreciative of your church and that you have such a servant's heart. Santa and I have told many times that we have an army. We are so blessed. Every outreach that we've ever done, whatever we need, God sends. He sends the resources, but most of all, He sends the people, because there's just two of us. So we need the bodies. We need the people. And He has blessed us with so many people. So we say all the time, we have an army. God sent us an army. Well, folks, we had a prayer service the Thursday night before we pulled out on Friday morning with those 2-box trucks of backpacks and school supplies. Well, actually, it was before that. That's when we had Channel 11 show up unexpected. It was our last night that we were filling school supplies. And we had a lot to do, and we were getting down to the wire in a short time to do it. And we saw this man and woman walking down our driveway, and they had 5 girls with them, like adolescent teenage girls. And somebody said, do you know who that is? I said, no, but it's probably going to be some youth from a local church. Well, they came up, and the guy introduced himself, and they were from Layton Chapel Church outside of Lillington, and we don't know that church, but they had heard what we were doing, and they had found out where we were through some research, and they showed up to help fill up backpacks. Well, this guy, he's an officer in the Army in the 82nd Airborne. Well, boy, did we feel good about that, because all this time we've been saying God sent us an Army. Well, folks, we're not just kidding anymore. He sent the 82nd Airborne to help us. And now they have offered anything that we need. This John, this officer in the Air Force, he said, my troops are just waiting. What can they do? We'd love to come help and serve. So when we say God sent an army, folks, we mean God sent an army. And God's got a really big army. So many things special about the backpacks, but two of my favorite things. One was we had a love letter. Every one of those backpacks, 1,158 love letters. They were written by children, they were written by adults, they were written by residents in nursing homes, they were written by Sunday school classes. Those love notes were amazing, what was written. Some of them just said, you're not forgotten, we love you. Some of them had scriptures, some of the children drew pictures, but every single one of those backpacks, we sent 1,158. Well, actually that's incorrect, because the night we did a prayer service to pray over those backpacks, it was an amazing time of prayer and thanksgiving. We had different people that prayed. We broke up. We had so much to pray about. So we had someone pray over the teachers, over the children, over the travels. We had about 5 or 6 different people praying. And this one lady came in late, and she had a little girl with her, and she was kind of standing at the back. And I motioned for her to come on back, and Santa got up and got a chair for, because we had 50-some people show up that night to put their hands on the trucks and to pray over them. So I didn't know her, but when the service was over and people are going out, the trucks are open, you can see the backpacks, people are putting their hands on it. That lady said, it was a mistake for me to be here tonight. I said, oh my goodness, what do you mean it was a mistake? She said, I saw all the posts about tonight, and she's a single parent. She said, I thought this was tonight that I could come here and that I could get supplies for her little girl was going into 1st grade. And she said, and I said, well, you can. So I'm right away screaming for somebody, get a backpack for this little girl right now. And she said, no, that's not what I mean. She said, this was an amazing service. She said, God led me here tonight. I am struggling with so many things in my life, and I needed to hear what had to be said here tonight. So folks, before we could even get in those trucks and head to Western North Carolina, there were so many blessings. There was no way we could even begin to count the blessings of how God was using this ministry. So we had 1,157 that actually went to the mountains. But we had a lot, and you might have seen in some of these pictures, there is a tag on every one of those backpacks that says, this backpack has been blessed. And on the back of it, it had a prayer. Every single one. Every time we would get a shipment of school supplies, Santa and I would pray over the school supplies. When the volunteers would come to the warehouse to pack backpacks, we prayed before we got started. So when we say those backpacks, and backing up to, it was hot in that warehouse. It was really hot. When we finished a few hours in that warehouse, we looked like you'd taken a hose pipe and wet us down. We were dripping wet. So as I'm making pictures, I'm going up and down those 2 assembly lines, and people are sweating, their hair's wet, there's water running down their face, and I say, isn't it great to be sweating for Jesus? Nothing feels like being sweating for Jesus. Well, one little boy, and I think Cash was like 4 years old, Santa took him as his assistant, so when a cardboard box would get emptied, they'd hand it to Cash, and Cash would put it on. You can imagine how big that stack of cardboard was. Well, he stopped in front of me one time, and his hair is dripping wet. He's got sweat running down his face, and he said, "Mrs. Claus, am I sweating for Jesus too?" What a blessing that he, at that age, he was serving, and he knew he wanted to be sweating for Jesus too. But I want to tell you now about the actual event. You know, when I said that they got a voucher for $750, I understand bureaucracy, and I understand there has to be systems in place. There just has to be some type of organization for this. But that morning when we were setting up in Newland, this old beat up car drives up, and there's a lady, an older lady driving it, and there's the passenger is an older man, and he's actually got a walker in the front seat with him. So I go over to see if I can help him. And she said, "Do you have school supplies?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, we sure do, and we're about to start handing them out." And she said, "Well, what have I got to go through, or what do I have to do?" I said, "Ma'am, you don't have to do anything except park that car and get out. And if you're not able to get out, I'll bring it to you. Just tell me how many kids you got and if they're girls and boys." They had just left another school supply giveaway at one of the high schools there in Avery County. And you had to register, you had to get signed in, and they gave you a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper it had backpack, everything was listed. It was like an itemized list. All the stuff was at tables, and I had to go to this table and get my pencils, and you stamped it that I had got them so I couldn't come back through and double dip. And they had to do it. They had 4 grandchildren they were raising, and they were both disabled. I don't even know how she was driving. She said, "We can't do that. We can't do that." That's part of the problem with the system. It was so complicated. So I said, "You know what? Tell me what." She told me the ages of her kids. She had 2 girls and 2 boys. We had someone jump in the back of that truck. We loaded that stuff up in the trunk for them, and we prayed for them right there. They never got out of their car. We prayed for them right there, because what a blessing it was. We didn't have any paperwork. You didn't have to get stamped. If you came and you told me you had 4 children and you needed backpacks and school supplies, then I trusted you, because that's what God sent me there to do, is those needs. So Debbie mentioned the prayer tent. Well, let me tell you about the backpacks first. We had 1,157. Well, on Friday before our Saturday, we were contacted by a church in Spruce Pine, which is a neighboring town, that church had been contacted by the police department. And they said that the foster program was drowning with kids that had nowhere to go and no school supplies. So it's hard enough to place a child in foster care in that situation, because you can't even take care of your own children, and now you're trying to bring a foster child in. And they needed help. So they said, "Is there any way, if you have anything left over, that you could share, so we could share it with the foster program and get some things to these foster children?" And I said, well, how many foster children are there in this situation? And they said, probably 125 or 130. I said, if you can get someone from your church to drive over here on Saturday morning. They did. They sent one of their deacons with this big old huge full-size pickup truck. We loaded 150 backpacks that they took back for the police department to actually get into those homes where those foster children were. Folks, we didn't wait until we got done at the end of the day to see what was going to be left over. We didn't take it off the bottom. We took it off the top. And we took it off the top because, going back to loaves and fishes, When they gave out all that bread and fishes, guess what? There was 12 baskets still left over. So we took it off the top because we knew God was going to provide. We did not have a doubt that we were not going to run out of what we needed. And Kathy, we also had another nonprofit, Humanity Helping All. They were serving an area in Chimney Rock and Blowing Rock that had been hit real hard. They needed help. We had them come over. We gave them 130 of the backpacks. So these backpacks that you hear at Garner Church of Christ help supply the school supplies for those backpacks, and you help come to that hot warehouse and you helped fill those backpacks. Folks, they went all. People were coming and getting a pickup load at the time to take to other areas. And, you know, God knew when we were in that hot warehouse loading those, He knew exactly. He knew every one of those kids that was going to get one of those backpacks. But we had several tents set up. We had lots of stuff. We had teacher supplies that we gave out. We had 2 food trucks with us, so we were able to feed them while we were there. But we had a prayer tent set up. We had these big red hearts. This was just so special. We had these big red hearts laying on the table, and they could write down their prayer request on this heart. You didn't have to sign it. You could just say, "Pray for me." God knew who you were when you were writing on that heart. So you could write it down if you weren't comfortable to ask for prayer. Not just the financial situations, the hurricane, but sicknesses and deaths and just some tragic things that they were dealing with. This one little boy, one of the times I was under the prayer tent, he asked if I could pray that there would never be another flood. Now that was kind of hard because, you know, we could pray for that, but we're not going to guarantee that there's not going to be a flood. So I prayed with him that if there wasn't or any bad thing that happened in our life, that God was going to take care of us through whatever the storm was. I can guarantee you that. I can pray for you for that. But we had people writing prayer requests. Well, that started out pretty good. We have lots of prayer requests that were written down, but we tried to have at least 2 people under that prayer tent at all times. But we also wanted everybody to have every experience. We wanted them to know what it was like to hand out that backpack. We wanted them to know what it was like to hand out that food and to feed these hungry people. So we rotated what we were doing. But this one lady from one of the churches in Anger, she went over to the prayer tent, but she wasn't expecting that both of those people were going to get up and walk away. And there she was under that prayer tent all by herself. 2 teenage girls came up and sat down and said, "Can you pray with us?" And when she was telling me the story, her testimony, she said, "Debbie, I have believed in the power of prayer my whole life." She said, "I always pray, but I've never been comfortable to pray out loud or to pray in front of people." She said, "But you know what? God snatched me out of that attitude under that tent with those 2 teenage girls." She was blessed. She didn't leave the prayer tent the rest of the time because now God had filled her with the Spirit and the gift of putting her hands on somebody and praying out loud with those people. So not families blessed that we went there to serve, we were blessed. We were blessed. As Debbie mentioned, it is absolutely life-changing. So these people, they might write their prayer requests down. You know, so this is kids, this is everybody. So they started writing on the heart. Simple little things like this one says, "I love you." This one in the kids misspelled, "Thank you." They drew pictures. These are just amazing. These were love notes. We didn't ask for this. We didn't orchestrate this. They picked up those pens and they wrote love notes back to us. Well, we had put a love note in every backpack. God knew we were going to get love notes back. So we started getting so many of these that the volunteers started taping them to the tent and up and down the poles of the tent until our tent poles are covered with the love. So many. Thank you for all you have done. God bless you for your help. This right here, from a mama. God bless you. From a mama who needed this. Some of these mamas had 3 kids. Some of these mamas were single parents. Some of these mamas, she probably, I don't know who this is. I didn't even see her when the note was written. God knows who she is. But from a mama that needed this. And to think that you here at Garner Church of Christ, y'all were part of that. That love note is to you. That's why I brought these today. This says, you are loved more than you'll ever know. Thanks for being here and bringing us hope. Please come back. Thank you for making this happen. Love you, thank you. But this, and there are just so many of these, it just goes on and on and on. But of all of these, the one that touched my heart the very most, this says, thank you for everything, and it's signed from James. James was a little 9-year-old boy, and he got the very first backpack that morning. And he had gotten his and he was with his older teenage sister, and they had gotten in the car, and Santa hadn't seen James yet, so they stopped the car so that Santa could go over. Well, by the time Santa got, James opened the backpack, and he has poured out everything in that backpack. It's all in the floorboard. It's all on the seat. No kid has ever been happier on Christmas morning than James was. He said, look, Santa, I got a water bottle. Look, Santa, I got a whole pack of Sharpies. Not just one, I got a whole pack of Sharpies. He was so excited. It summed up everything. What was the most important, and I love this. I mean, I will use this. This little red heart will probably go with where I speak from this day forward, because James said, thank you for everything. Should that not be our prayer every single day? Thank you for everything. That just basically says it all, doesn't it? Thank you for everything. So we were so blessed that we joined together. Garner Church of Christ joined us to serve with humility, love, and dedication. We serve together with our hearts and our hands. I love the songs today. Were just so appropriate, just such a blessing. We knew, you knew at Garner Church of Christ, that you're fulfilling God's purpose, what God wants us to do. He wants us to serve. He wants us to serve together. He wants us to help those. And you know, when we had 30 volunteers, it was amazing that we had 30 people that went with us. Now, we had way more than that in the warehouse, but we had 30 people that went with us to Western North Carolina. Now, Santa and I were blessed because we pretty much knew those 30 people. But those 30 people didn't know each other when we got to Newland. And these families that came that we served, these other volunteers that came to serve with us, we had so many people and so much. Sent the North Carolina State Trooper out there to direct traffic. We had the city police out there. We had the Avery County Fire and Rescue. We caused a commotion. God wanted to be seen, and when God wants to be seen, God was seen. But, you know, when we went there as strangers. But when we left there as family. Isn't that wonderful to be part of the family of God? So thank you so much for the opportunity to come here personally and thank you. I do want to come back at some time and tell the rest of the story, because there are just so many beautiful pieces of the way that God has used this ministry and continues to bless us with opportunities. We'd love to share that with you for lots of reasons. We want to tell you what God has done, but we want to share some other opportunities that you might want to serve with us, because we are definitely stronger together. We are stronger. You know, if we turned off all these lights in here and got it really dark and I stood here and I lit one candle, you might could see my candle, but guess what? It'd still be dark in here. But if everybody in here lit a candle, guess what? We'd have enough light then, wouldn't we? So if it's okay, before we close, if we could stand and sing This Little Light of Mine. I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you. And I'm going to leave with these words to listen. God might be calling, and He might be saying, who shall I send? Who will go? And when He does, answer Him and say, here I am, God, send me. Thank y'all so much. We love you and appreciate you and look forward to next time.